Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. I'm Mark Stein, Thrive founder and your podcast host. We're creating sustainable, inclusive, and multi-generational residential communities from repurposed big box stores or other unused buildings. By offering unique and ecological co-living options, our aim is to combat the epidemic of isolation, revitalize communities, and help others discover the many benefits of engaged community living. In this podcast series, join us as we discuss co-living and other aspects of our concept, in addition to bringing you interesting people who are doing cool things from around the world. Through this podcast, learn more about our concept and see how Thrive co-living communities will bring together people from all walks of life. To find more about us, visit www.thrivecolivingcommunities.org. Thanks for watching and enjoy the podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. Today, I'm pleased to have Chris Lange. I am pronouncing Lange right. Am I not? Your last name?
No, but we can go on this. Yeah,
how do you pronounce
Lange? Lange in German.
Lange.
Yeah. Lange, yeah.
We didn't discuss this when we met initially, but you probably know Stein is German, and I think it means rock. I've not been to Germany,
exactly,
but I do hope to come there, and I don't know much about the German side of my family, but I think it means rock or stone.
Yes, that's true. Exactly, Mark. Yeah.
Good, and I hope it describes me well. In a positive way, and not that I'm rigid, but that I'm solid. So
yeah.
Anyway, thank you. And so pleased to have you with us. Chris has a co-living concept for college students, and he has a website at comments.com. I'm probably not pronouncing that well either. And he'll tell us about that. And I'm very curious on how he came up with the name. But Chris, welcome. Glad to have you on the podcast. And tell us a little bit about your background and about what led you to have such passion for this idea for co-living for students, college students.
Great. Thank you a lot, Mark. So yeah, I'm also very happy to be here. It will be my first podcast now. And I'm very glad that Mark invited me, and yeah, to basically share the story of Coments, because it is a very personal story to me. I will go through this later on. Maybe first of all to the Coments as a word creation. Of course, it's a new word creation. So I came up with this idea because usually also in co-living setups, we are talking about apartments, right? Apartments here, micro apartments there. So the idea here was to think about this word. I mean, apart basically means a separation, right? So in co-living setups, we don't necessarily want that much separation, because loneliness, of course, is a real and great issue. So here I basically came up with that idea to skip the apartments and make it a community mens or a co-living mens, and that's Coments. So that's basically the idea behind the word. Yeah.
Nice.
And to my personal background, so as you can see, I'm still very young. I'm the founder of Coments, and the idea here was that I basically was the target group as a college student myself. So I was very unsatisfied with my living situation at college, and because I mean it was a great apartment, it was big and a good price to value ratio, but a little outside of the city center, not so much student appropriate. So I felt lonely. The apartment didn't feel appropriate. This was one of these, of course, first things I thought about when I came up with this Coments idea. And then later on, also maybe we talk about this later. So I did a backpacking journey through Southeast Asia, where I also experience the benefits and how happy it makes you to have less things than more things, and also this minimalistic and sustainability aspect. And these things together basically lead me to tiny houses. I really like tiny houses a lot, but they are mostly not so appropriate for city center, because their ground space is very expensive. So the idea is to make Coments. It's basically a village of tiny houses in a high rise. So a co-living setup for students. That's the current idea. Later on, we, if it all works out well, then we can widen the concept to other target groups.
Describe a little bit for us what, a little more in depth, what your experience was in college. Sort of line out the problem a little bit. Did you have roommates? And talk about student life for college students and what you think leads to that loneliness.
Yeah, I think there are several reasons for this. So most of us have been to college or attended some student activities. So you basically always want to be with your mates in college, right? A lot of time you're attending the university, the lessons. I mean, not so much in COVID time, but usually you'll be at the college site. And then, then afterwards is the question, how do you get home? For example, how long do you need? So the location is a thing that really matters a lot. Of course, where the apartment is located inside the city. So if you have to drive in half an hour or an hour to get to the campus, that's very long, because then most of the time, this was the case for me, probably you're more like, oh, I need to go home now, and the other guys are still partying or something like this. So that's not so nice. On the other hand, it would have been maybe different if I had roommates. But when I went to college and I choose my housing, I went for an apartment on my own, because I describe it always as I heard so many horror stories about flat sharing. I mean, there are really a lot out there, and most of us had experience with it in one way or the other. So basically, for me, it is, I don't want to share my bathroom. So that's basically one thing, right? But on the other hand, of course, it's nice to live together with other people. So maybe share the dining room, or just have them nearer to you, more around. So I lived alone, and probably, of course, this also led to this loneliness. So it's probably the space also, because it was a big apartment. And when you're alone in a big apartment, you have to fill it somehow, right? With people, with furniture, and it will feel naturally more lonely than somewhere in the city center with your mates together. So
I don't know what the percentages are in the US about college students who live in dorms on or near campus versus students that live off campus. I suspect that for most colleges, except maybe very densely urban colleges like New York University, where there's not the availability of space to even have many dorms, but I suspect that many in the US start out in a dorm, maybe their first year, and then sort of move out into apartments. But dorm life is pretty common for new students, and it's probably, for the loneliness factor, it's probably more important that when you get started that you have people around you. What is it like in Germany in terms
Yeah.
of dorm life on or near the campus and classes versus people who live in apartments? And I know you're not going to know the percentage anyway either.
Yeah. So like I said, I can't say any percentage on this, but I know that it's much more common in the US to have these dorms on campus and also provided from the university themselves than just private flat sharing or a private flat on their own. So in Germany, this concept is much more common. So there are less dorms, less purpose-built on-site facilities for the students. Usually on-site is only the campus with the classrooms, basically. And then most students, that's my perception, are going in the near city area where they rent out apartments and then basically share these apartments. So in Germany, there's a lot of flat sharing. I conducted a survey among German students in May this year. So in 2020 and 2021, 2021, and to basically do some market research. And there, among over 1,400 participants, said nearly 75% of them that they prefer flat sharing. So that's German numbers, and they also live in a flat sharing, around 75%. So that's very common in Germany. Yeah, but of course, with this,
Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, with this flat sharing, there come some difficulties for the students, because these sharing communities are oftentimes not on a legal basis. There is conflict arising easily over payment of rent or payment of common goods or these things. So I think there is a huge need, especially in the German, but I mean all Europe markets, and probably also in the US, to provide really high quality apartments purpose-built for the student.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think German universities did not attend to dorm life for the majority? Are they mostly in dense urban areas and there's not space, or do you think that that universities just feel like their responsibility is to provide the coursework and not the living environment?
Yeah, probably the latter, but I have to admit I don't know this. I can only speculate, and therefore I think it's a historic development that it's different in the US compared to Europe. Yeah,
because it seems like focusing on the living experience is a more holistic approach to education. I mean, that is such I think it's seen in the US as one of the most important aspects of being in college is that social interaction. There are a lot of fraternities and sororities, a lot of activities, extracurricular activities that promote interaction. It's still, my college experience was mostly dorm life. I think it was all dorm life. But it's still, and I had, in quite a few situations, I was in a suite with 5 other people, and on floors that had maybe 4 of those suites. But it still felt lonely, and it's interesting. That's a time of your life, age-wise, that you're the most open to new experiences, but it's it's difficult to find those because it's difficult to find your people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we can share this the link to the study afterwards. What I found is in another study that that loneliness is, so we all know, I mean, loneliness is a real issue, but the exact numbers really shocked me. So this study was conducted in I think 2019, so pre-COVID, and the numbers there show in the age group from 18 to 28 years old or 30 years, these young folk is all in all the loneliest. So 1 out of 4 of them reports to often or always feel lonely. That's to me, that's crazy, because on the one hand, it's before comment, not before comments, but before COVID, before COVID. And on the other hand, these aren't even the youngest one, right? So the youngest generations that grew up with social media, they will attend university in the next years or attending it now. And I can imagine very good that these numbers are even worse than back then. So 1 out of 4, I think that's that's frightening. Yeah.
I do want to move on from this, but I think maybe I'll make one other point, that at least here, and I'll only speak to the US as if I can speak for the whole US, but I think that parents and grandparents and people in general really inflate the expectations of students. This is the greatest time of your life. You know, you're free, you don't have responsibilities, you don't have a family. So go out and have fun. And I would imagine that the disconnect between those expectations, if this holds in Germany, between those expectations and the reality, which is a lot of loneliness, that adds to the stress and the disappointment and the sense of isolation. Hey, if this is the best time of my life, what's the next part?
What did I do wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Could be. Yeah. I mean, there are still a lot of people happy with their living situation, right? So, I mean, if light sharing turns out very well, if you come together with your mates and you're basically one mind in one direction, then it could be great. And in many cases, for sure, it is great. But on the other hand, we also have to think about the cases where it doesn't work out, and that obviously isn't that uncommon. And I think there's need and opportunity to step into that and to really foster a change here. Yeah.
So as a person who has a co-living concept that I'm working on, I am 100% sure that when you're out and about, or you're out exercising or taking a shower, that you're imagining yourself in your community and thinking about different aspects of the community and what it would be like and what it would feel like. So would you share some of your visions of what it looks like, what it feels like? How do you imagine it being?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we don't have the whole day, but of course, I mean, every business owner, everyone who wants to build something up knows that it's nearly every time always in your mind, and you're constantly thinking about that. So basically, maybe where I give a short intro to this vision of mine will be the architectural part and the underlying architectural part of Coments. So the idea, like I told earlier, is basically to have these tiny houses, tiny not apartments, tiny Coments, right? you have this tiny comments, and these are clustered around this central common area, a common room. In this common room, you basically have a big kitchen and a dining table and a cozy area, like right? And then you have these comments around that. These are very small. So our idea is to take it on with a ground floor space of 11.5 square meters, something around that. On top of that, you'll have something like a gallery, a second floor inside this comment, where on this gallery there is the bed of the student. So, and basically in this comment, all in all, you have this bed, you have a little working dining area, you have a small kitchenette for preparing a tea or warming up your meals in the microwave, for example, and then you have a small bathroom. And of course, on top of that, storage. So basically this I'm saying as an introvert myself, an introvert can very comfortably live inside of such a comment, right? You have basically everything. But on the other hand, you have this right next to the comment, you have this common area where you have to go through every time you're coming up from the staircase, go through the central common area and go inside your personal comment there. So, and the idea here is to make it easy also for introverts to connect with each other, because basically this common area, it's like a street knot, right? Everyone needs to go through this. So everyone in your community out of maybe 12 goes through this common area for preparing meal, for I don't know, chatting with somebody else, or just chilling at the lounge area in this common area. So there is naturally a connection in that, and I think this makes it very attractive for on the one hand, of course, extroverts who probably spend more time in the common area. That's great. On the other hand, introverts who find it easier to connect to other ones through this common area, but also have their own private apartment to learn, or to be on their own, and that's okay, right? So that's basically the ground floor of such a comments unit, and then the other aspect will be, there are a lot of co-living ideas and operators out there with different concepts. So most of them are providing a lot of facilities in-house. So you, for student co-living, it's oftentimes, I don't know, a cinema room or an in-house gym or something like this. I mean, these are nice. It's cool to have this in-house, right? It's cool. But on the other hand, it's also expensive. And if you imagine a gym, for example, maybe only 5% of the residents, of the tenants in the 200 building unit building only access these gyms or use it regularly or once in a while, right? So the majority of the students are just paying for it. And that's, to me, that's senseless, right? We can skip this easily because, it's maybe another thing for young professionals co-living, or for more mature age groups co-living. But the students, they usually have discounts in their university city, right? They through their student status, they have discounts for the gym and for the cinema, and of course in university city these facilities are oftentimes near, so they don't have to go that far. And therefore we are, at Coments, we are really focusing on giving them a great living experience, only the living, with quality materials, with the sustainability aspect, with the community aspect. And yeah, then maybe partner up with operators of gyms in the near area, something. So we don't want to provide this in-house. Therefore, we really have this focus on the essentials. What I learned is very valuable out of my backpacking tour. Yeah.
The 12 square meters, that's the entire comment.
Yeah, so one of these, so the personal apartments, which I call Coments, right? This comment will have a ground floor space. It's nearly a square, nearly of around 11.5 square meters. And inside this, you have a second floor where you have your bed. Yeah, so the room height is a little bit higher. It doesn't feel that small. I know it sounds threatening, maybe this 11 square meters, especially as Americans are usually statistically living in bigger apartments than the Germans. I think maybe 10 or 15 square meter bigger for normal apartments, but this is okay. I mean, it's a European setting. It's a setting for very dense housing regions. And of course, we are talking about students, and students are willing, that also showed in a study, they are willing to give up a little personal space. And on the other hand, of course, they are getting this space back in common space. And of course, through this approach, you have, as a person, have bigger access to space, right? So yeah, normal student housing situations are oftentimes more like micro livings. So in Germany, micro living is around 20-25 square meter apartments where you also have everything inside. And then you oftentimes, so one apartment here, and between these, there's a huge hallway, right? It's nearly endless. It's nobody basically wants to be in this hallway. So that's a problem, because we want to use this hallway basically to make interaction. And how do we do this? We make the hallway from this to that. We make it wide. We bring basically the common area right inside the hallway. Yeah.
Is the common area two-story open, 2 stories, or does it have 2 stories like the comments do?
Yeah. So it's basically each one is 1 story. Yeah, it's 1 story. Also, the common area is 1 story, but the comments, I mean, it isn't a 2-story comments. This would be too high in terms of building regulations or these things. But you can imagine it as only a niche for sleeping. So it's around 1 meter high. Or 120, yeah.
It's more of a loft.
A loft, yeah.
What we call a loft, where there's not much headroom, you can just crawl up in there.
It's only for sleeping, or yeah.
Okay. You know, one of the thoughts that I have had around ownership versus rentals is that when we want to build community, we want our residents to feel ownership in the space, that it's their space. And I think the mentality between an owner mentality and a renter mentality, it can be quite different. That an owner takes more responsibility for their space inside and outside. And I think a renter is more like, has more the attitude, I'm paying for this and I need to have things given to me. Yeah. And I think when we're younger, and especially some of the younger generations feel more like they want convenience. They They don't want to, they want food brought into them. They want things delivered to them. And not that other age groups don't, but one of my concerns about a rental, and I would think it would be exacerbated with students, is the difficulty in having them take responsibility both for the interior maintenance and cleaning of the common space, as well as programming, because I feel like programming is probably the most important part of creating a sense of community. And so what have you thought about that? And what are your thoughts around that? Because I could see how it could be. And also students are feeling like, I'm not going to be here that long, maybe 4 years, unless I go to graduate school. So the temporary nature of it might probably would make it even more difficult for them to take ownership in where they are. What are your thoughts?
The first at the ideation stage of Coments, I also thought a lot about this, because there are also kind of these build to rent to own models, right? So you're basically paying a rent a little higher, but at the end of a term, you have a certain percentage, and you own a certain percentage of this apartment you're living in. This is great, of course, to create this ownership, right? But like you mentioned, it's more difficult for students, because if you're doing well with our operations, they maybe stay 2 years or 3 years. But I don't imagine a lot of them are staying longer than that, because obviously they somehow graduate and then go somewhere else. So of course that's an idea, but we basically skip that. Maybe for another model in the future with Coments, senior Coments, for example, right? Another structure, but maybe a rent-to-own model could be could make sense there. On the other hand, of course, like you told, it's important to create this ownership, because otherwise the students won't be that or don't feel that responsible for the furniture or for the cleaning or events or something like this. And of course, this makes it more difficult for the operator. And on the other hand, what I got out it is, I think it's called the Happy Homes Report. What I got out of this is that basically, if you feel this ownership, then you're more happy in your home. There's a very strong correlation. So the idea is how to create ownership. Because when the students feeling happy there, of course they stay longer, and if they stay longer, it's financially more attractive for the operator. So that's an easy correlation. How do we get to this? And basically, we here came up with a fairly simple solution, but in my opinion, it could be highly attractive to the students as well as to the operator, so to us. This basically is to give the students an opportunity to create, to shape their home. Because if you're shaping your apartment, if you're building your own house, then you feel this ownership, even if it's not yours financially, but you feel like an owner of it. So I painted this wall, and then you show all your friends, this is such a nice wall, I painted it, right? This is ownership, and then you're more willing to stay longer naturally. So basically, we integrate this into the Coments concept. So the personal apartments are, for example, there are cork walls, because cork, you can easily pin something on it, right? So photos, or I don't know. Whoever wants to do something with it, he can do, without hurting the wall or breaking the wall somehow. And on the other hand, for example, in the common room, we came up with this idea of, at the beginning of the semester, when the students are moving in, to create there an event where every student participates. So we have a group of 12 students for one common room. They now get the task to, for example, shape a wall, right? To just bring in their ideas, shape something together, for example, paint it, or I don't know, maybe they come up with something totally else, right? So they shape this, and then they are living for at least half a year inside of this. Afterwards, maybe someone else moves in, and then they shape it again, right? And this way, we are able to make every student feel responsible, feel this ownership of at least this part of the common area. So that's one of our ideas, to basically create ownership through the through giving the opportunity to the students to create or shape the apartment and the room on their own.
Yeah, that's good. And you reminded me of my college experience just a couple of years ago. And in the first year, we had single rooms, very small. I don't think in meters, so I can't do that, but it only had a bed, a desk, a little bit of space, maybe a chair. And one student on my floor raised the bed, built a platform and put the bed on top of it. And then he had a little sitting area underneath, and it was just made of plywood and wood, but he made it a very cool space. And if I remember correctly, a lot of our gatherings were in his room, because it did give more social space. And he did take a lot of pride in that very simple wood frame structure, and gave him a lot of pleasure. The other thing I thought of when you were talking about the common area is maybe you could have the furniture when they arrive. Maybe you could have the furniture in a stack in the middle of the room, so that they at the very beginning have to arrange it. And maybe if you have multiple units of 12, they could get rid of some of the pieces or trade them with other units, and go buy, get together and buy certain things, so that they can customize it. And it would just be the common furniture that circulates amongst let's say you have 4 of these units together, and circulates. But having that big stack of furniture in the middle of the room would encourage their creativity. I don't know. That just popped in my mind.
Sounds cool. It sounds definitely nice. It's a great idea. Of course, it will probably only be possible for the first move in, right? So afterwards, when the students change, then there will basically already be some furniture there. But on this aspect also, of course, could be translated to furniture that isn't with a specific purpose in a specific place. So to give the students the opportunity to rearrange them if they want, right? So don't provide a couch that is in one piece and I don't know, 10 meters long or something like this, but the idea is to provide sections, right? Smaller pieces, and they could be arranged from the students themselves, and so it could be a great space for different purposes.
I was thinking that if your school year is segmented by semesters, and for the most part, the same people come the second semester. You could put the furniture back in the middle of the room during the break and really piss them off when they come back and see that their furniture is in the middle of the room again.
They did. Yeah, funny.
So what are your thoughts about programming and getting ownership for the programming? You know, I think the more you do for people, but especially students, the more they expect you to do more for them. So how do you get that ownership with the programming so that they're generating the ideas, the wine tastings, the whatever, speakers? How do you get them, especially in a student rental scenario, to take that ownership of programming?
Yeah. So our perception is that, I mean, there are operators of student housing, of private student housing with a kind of co-living approach out there already. They oftentimes do a lot of top-down management when it comes to these events. And I can totally understand this because they are usually organized like these micro-living setups. We have the long hallways. You don't meet the people. You don't. You probably most of the time only meet them at events, and at the events probably only will be extroverts. So the introverts won't go there, right? And then yeah, maybe you meet somebody else in the gym or something like this, but that's it. So these operators, to create a community, they have to do events, and of course, and this setup is. It's way more difficult to create ownership inside the students to take on these events themselves. So yeah, that's basically the setup right now. And on the other hand, what we try to do, of course, like I told earlier, these common areas are community building areas from the ground up, right? Because you bump into each other naturally, you speak to one, and after a week you basically know everyone in this in your common room very well. So 12 people shape a community on their own, and I think that's a better community size, because there you know everyone personally. And yeah, of course, then as operator, we will do at the common roof, for example. It's a roof for every resident in the building, and we'll could make a bigger gathering where 100 of the residents of the buildings, 120, come together, maybe for a campfire, or I don't know, a projector, and we view a movie together or something like this. But these are more rarer events. So the idea is that the students themselves, they have these small communities, these natural communities, and from this, like a normal flight sharing, I mean, this works out as well, and the students are happy with it, right? When the other aspects like rental payment and this, when this works out well as well. So yeah, they are basically doing it on their own. But of course, we will have a community facilitator, not the community manager, but a community facilitator to to create a community, or to help out with if somebody has questions. Maybe he wants to organize a communal cooking with some guys of the other common rooms. So there will be some support, some facilitation there, but the idea is to bring it bottom up, because it's more naturally and of course more sustainable.
Sure. And they will have to study too. So
yeah, of course. I mean, you don't can party all the time. Yeah.
So is there anything else? You know, I know you, if you're like me, you could talk all day about your vision and different aspects of your vision, but are there any key parts of your concept that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share special features. I want to just give you any other opportunity to share.
Cool. Thank you, Mark. Yeah. So I have triggered it a few times. It's the aspect of sustainability. So sustainability to me personally is a very important topic. Obviously, there's this whole climate change thing, and what I experience, there is some awareness of this, but very few action to stop it. And that's horrifying. Of course, I mean, it's probably another few, because I'm very young, I'm in my early 20s, and I don't know if a real estate manager is in his 60s, and it's most of the time I could imagine another view, and right? Because climate change is you need a very long time view, and when you can't imagine, I don't know, living in 50 years from now, why should you care when you can make good money today, right? So that's a little a pity. But of course, I mean, currently there are a lot of organizations, a lot of thought leaders try to tackle this problem, and as Coments, we want to be part of it to really lead the change here. Because I mean, there is, like I told, there is some awareness in the topic, also some approaches, but in my perception, not thought to the end, or not that efficient, right? So sustainability is an important topic in the Coments concept, but as we discussed the whole time now, there are a lot of other aspects too, but sustainability is an important one, and we want to create this through from the building ground up, with sustainable construction. So we will use wood modular construction if we build on new sites, on greenfield, and if it's on brownfield development, we also want to focus on very sustainable creation of these spaces. And then of course, through the creation of this brand Coments, which is also focused on the sustainability aspects, we also want to attract the residents, the students that care on sustainability, so that there's a common mindset that there needs to be change, or and they are basically aware of the problem, and so it's easier to afterwards come on with a different solution, try out new things in the sustainability aspects.
There are a lot of challenges there, especially like disposing of food waste. When you have 12 people, and especially 12 students, disposing of that in a sustainable way and an ecological way is really challenging. Okay, well, this has been great, and it always feels wonderful to me to interact with someone who's thinking along these same lines. I suppose it is for everyone, but who's thinking about these things every day and working through these problems. So I'm really glad to have you on the site, on the podcast. Sorry, I was thinking about your website. So tell us again, and we'll put this in the show notes, what your website URL is.
Yes, it's coments.com. So CONENTS.com. Yeah, but of course you will show it on the website. I mean, probably most of your viewers also will have LinkedIn, so you can reach out there. Also, in the company profile, it's Coments Student Co-Living. There you basically, if you insert this in the search function, you will find it. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, reach out to me, please. Yeah.
And if they email the email address on the comments site,
Coments, like co-living, Coments.
Okay. Comment. It's hard for me to say it.
No.
The email address on that site will get them to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure. Also the LinkedIn, yeah, I think it's very easy to reach out. Yeah.
good. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
a
so
lot,
much.
Mark.
It's been a very rich experience. We're thinking about a lot of the same things, but with a different
Yeah.
audience. So it brings its own set of challenges. Best of luck to you. Let's stay in contact. We're both in CoLive. Let's give CoLive a plug. Um, is it co-liv.org?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an international organization of people who are interested in, who are already operators, um, community managers, but
Investors.
investors, entrepreneurs. So if you want to explore more about this community, and it seems to be exploding, they had an event with people from Africa this past week and the Nordics also last week. So this is an idea that's on fire, and I really appreciate being involved with this group. It also helps lessen the isolation and loneliness that comes from having a new idea
Yeah.
to commune with other people. So thanks so
That's
much. We'll have you back on. Keep me posted on your progress, and we'll have you on to talk about the next phase. So thanks so much. And everybody, thank you for tuning in to the podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. To learn more about our mission and how you can support our vision of creating co-living communities worldwide, please visit us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. To receive advanced viewings of our podcast and other exclusive content, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Thrive Co-Living Communities. You can also learn more ways to support our mission in the show notes below. Amazon Smile, GoFundMe, Kroger, and our own Thrive Gear store, where you can buy t-shirts, hats, and many other items. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.